robots. I like robots. Mega Man, Armored Core, Mech Warrior. All great robot series that I play a lot. An uncomfortable amount. I also like mass customization. See those 3 games again. But when I talk about those games, there's also a 4th series of game that I like to play as well. Custom Robo. Custom Robo is a game franchise developed by Noise, a small Japanese developer of which this is their only large property. Their first Western release, the titular Custom Robo, came out in 2004 for the Nintendo GameCube, while its follow-up, and technically latest release, is Custom Robo Arena, which came out in 2007 for the Nintendo DS. What's cool and awesome is that both games are actually published by Nintendo, putting this in their pantheon of long-lasting franchises like Mario, Kid Icarus, and Chibi Robo. What? In this series, use a Robo that's custom. Custom Robo is a series taking place in the future, where the big cultural touchstone of the era is the titular Custom Robo. A small action figure-like robot that people can transfer their minds into, aka diving. These robots are used in the game's main feature, arena battles, as well as other applications like space exploration and police work. Wait, did we just give every kid a gun? Today, we'll only be talking about the DS follow-up, as that's the one that I like to play, as well as the one I played as a kid. Maybe I'll get to it in its own video in the future, but in my opinion, I think Custom Robo Arena is the more superior game because of a lot of reasons that we'll get into later on in the video. Like how the GameCube version believes the Earth is flat. Story. Let's first get into the more RPG exploration part of the game. In the exploration story part of the game, we take control of our main character as he makes his way from a newcomer to the world of Rock'em Sock'em robots to the top of the food chain, helping the downtrodden team of the Numero Unos, I fucking hate this name, from nearly dissolving to winning the Robo Cup, the largest Robo tournament in the world. And by helping, I of course mean becoming the Omnisaya and carrying your team to essentially one-man victory. I mean, Liv, the main supporting character of the cast, says she does support you, but the most supporting she ever does in this story is encouraging you to do dubiously legal acts. Actually, no, she gets us to do illegal acts as well. Also, a very interesting move that I saw when replaying this game is that you get a lot of yes or no options in at least the beginning, and by selecting the wrong option, the other characters will just gaslight you into choosing the other option. Very interesting world building choice to say that most of the main characters' closest ties are built up on a history of coercion and manipulation. There's also this really funny sitcom-esque day format where you gotta go eat breakfast with your family where you're told about what you're going to do today, and then dinner where you get told about what you're going to do tomorrow, and then you also gotta go to school for some reason. You know, maybe we are in hell. Maybe our character died a long time ago and this is just hell. The main story of this game, although it is most definitely a backdrop to the main gameplay of Custom Robo Arena, is good. I don't want to spoil the entire storyline, I say as I put away my original script of just telling you what happens in this game. But as a point of reference, Custom Robo, its storyline and characters, make me want to drive off a cliff. I can't really say that a majority of the characters develop, although there are some that do, but what's more cool is that there are little notes to be made for each character. Look at her little face when she loses. His wife is always on his ass. This fucking guy. The exploration elements, aka the open world part of the game, I mean it's alright. I mean there's a lot of houses that are just there just to be there. They're not even other characters' houses. So this world does seem kind of shallow aside from mission battles tucked into corners. And the shop system, it's an acquired taste. Let's get into the shop system. Custom Robo, the original game, has you gaining parts after each battle, while Arena, on the other hand, has a cash system. On one hand, you don't have these long intervals where you're just given garbage part after garbage part, meaning that there are large intervals of the game where you're just not testing setups at all. But the cash system in Custom Robo Arena doesn't exactly fix that either. If you're a completionist and want to grab every weapon in the game at its earliest convenience, you're going to end up doing a lot of... and you'll still probably not like the guns anyways. Thanks for the cool parts, man. I hate it. Anyways, who cares about the open world? It's only where you eat, sleep, and die. The main gameplay of the Custom Robo series is the Robo fights. You and one other opponent launch from the Robo Cannon, or maybe not, onto a small arena called a Holosseum, or maybe not. After picking yourself off the ground in what can only be described as a way to insert first turn advantage into this game, or maybe you duke it out in a battle to the death, or 0 HP. You've got 4 weapons, or maybe, yeah you do, an auto-targeting gun, a manually aimed bomb, an unaimed pod, and lastly, truck. There's also a million other things like combos, downs, invincibility frames, air dashes, air jumps, the entire concept of lightning skies, overload, stealth, slide shots, soul boost, wall jumping, jump canceling, short hops. A lot. That means, in the best of cases, chaotic battles that rely a lot on what you're packing versus what the opponent has, as well as general strategy and on-the-fly thinking. And now that I say that out loud, I mean like, that's just a fighting game in general. And that leads us into changing up what you're packing. Oh boy, the customization. This is the best part of the game. The most interesting part of the game. There's a reason why part of customization is in the title of the series. There is a lot of parts in the game. Short range gun, long range gun, medium range gun, drill gun, fire gun, dragon gun, fist gun, orb. You can build a Robo for basically any scenario 15 different ways. And that's why it's so good. I mean, like, look at this. You even got little loadouts you can save and little dioramas the Robo lives in while you customize him. Let's think about it this way. Locking in a build that feels perfect for you is just the best feeling. Going into that trance-like state where you can truly lock in and use a strategy to beat the shit out of your opponents. This is why we cook. Fast legs, splash gun, Ray Mark III, attack, pod, instant combo. And it's so good to pull off. There are a million different combinations like this. And that's what makes it so good.
But I'm not done yet.
Counterpicking. Counterpicking in order to beat the opponent who's been kicking your ass, it just feels right. It's also necessary in the game. There are guns that would generally be more powerful than your gun in the story. And you're going to need to just completely invalidate it sometimes. Because if you don't, you lose. Now, for all this customization, there is a small caveat. There is just so many different guns to use. It does give way to a little, small minor crack in the system.
Cheers.
Let's look at the Little Raiders / Sprinter set of Robos. These Robos are typically fast, light, and generally deal less damage than most Robos. But that doesn't matter. Sooner or later, facing these or using these Robos, you're going to realize that they instantly go down touching any sort of weapon. And that's because the AI uses these and runs themselves into their own bombs constantly. After getting up after you go down, you do have a set amount of invincibility frames called a rebirth. Enter the Acrobat set of weapons. The Acrobat set of weapons are in practice 0 damage weapons used to launch yourself into the air. The child has failed to achieve flight. But don't worry, get up, run towards the enemy while you're invincible, and then just shoot him dead. And then repeat. If done correctly, the enemy will never be able to hit you because you're invincible, but you'll be able to just run up to him and shoot him constantly. And then, the fun of the game is going to smash into a brick wall. Remember when I said the game is at its best when you're finding solutions to an opponent's build, or just finding a sick combo that can work in the right conditions? Well, the game is at its worst when that gets thrown out the window, and you just spam the same build over and over again. And it works. This isn't even the only cheese in the game, but it's just one of the many, many cheeses that allows you to just one build the entire game. And when you just run that strategy for the entire game, never change it, it becomes routine, like another day at the office. And then you start to ask questions since it's so autopilot. Why is 1v1 the only game mode in the game? Why couldn't they put in capture the flag or hit the targets? Why does the plot fall apart in the last quarter of the game? There are rules in place for these robos until there aren't. Character points are established that just don't make sense with what happened earlier in the game. Why is this the worst stage in the game? Half of the bullets fired on this stage just disappear, and it sucks. The way I would explain the enjoyment of this game is a bell curve related to your knowledge of the game. The lower half is just you getting your ass kicked. You don't know how to counterpick, so the enemy will just dump on you. You will never get past parts of the story, and you will not have a good time. There is a handicap system though. And then the upper half is when you know too much. When you can autopilot the game and then start falling asleep.
I'm tired.
Wait, why did I teach you guys cheese? Now let's get into those flaws I just mentioned. That isn't the plot. I say that because I don't want to spoil what happens, but the consistency does fall off within the latter quarter of the game. 1v1 is the only game mode in this single player. There are permutations, asking you to limit your customization, or win under certain time limits or arenas, but at best it's just asking you to do a simple round of testing, and at worst, it's actively pushing you to use weapons that you hate. This also limits build variety, as with capture the flag or hit the targets, you open up a lot of more builds that are possible pertaining to long range accuracy, high movement, or just harassing the opponent. Too bad that doesn't happen, and that's not a world that this game wants to step into. And really, it just compounds the cheese issue from before, because you're only needing to cheese one mode called the 1v1. Now, considering this is a game for the Nintendo DS, you'd be wondering if there is any dual screen functionality with it. No, not really. I mean, you've got bars to see if your robot's weapons are off cooldown. You can activate Soul Boost from it. There's this little thing at the bottom when you're not in combat. Oh, I know what you can do. You can clean your robot. Exciting, huh? Another flaw I should make note of before going to the conclusion of this video. This is a 3D arena. This is a Nintendo DS D-pad. They don't go very well together. Safe to say movement doesn't always feel like you're 100% in control, especially with the faster robos. You're often going to run into bullets that you didn't want to run into. Now, even though I just named a bunch of flaws with the game, I don't want that to detract from the entire experience. Custom Robo is a great game that I recommend playing for yourself, and really, I just hope they make another installment. Frantic battles, an amazing customization system, and characters. Character design is definitely up to your taste, but I do like these simpler designs. Now, I wonder what Noise has been doing since working on this game. Not a lot. From what I gather, they're still a company that exists. They work with Square Enix on one of their Dragon Quest mobile games. So I guess if they wanted to try, they could resurrect this series. But I don't think they want to. Yeah, so remember that I said to keep note of the first global release, Custom Robo? They have like 3 other games that didn't make it to America. Custom Robo V2, and GX. What the hell is this? You've also probably noticed that Custom Robo is a very different art style than every other game that's in this series. And that's because I just assumed they wanted a different style for their global release game. But that creates a real issue, especially when your next game is just doubling back to the original style from the game. It does send mixed signals to a global crowd. I mean, let's compare the beginning of both games. Custom Robo Arena starts with your loving family apologizing to you for having to move to a new town and then giving you your first Custom Robo. Custom Robo starts with your dad leaving you. Doesn't really get much brighter than this. And from what reviews I could see, it was a mixed reception to the first game, and not as much sales when it came to the DS. I wouldn't exactly come back to that either. And personally, I'd much rather keep a series dormant than pull something half-baked and boring because you needed to. Footage unrelated, why are you showing me a game that doesn't exist? That being said, personally, I would love a revival of this type of series, and honestly this type of game in general. I've played a few spiritual successors, but haven't really gotten into them like I did with Custom Robo Arena. I don't know if it's just me getting older, or just this game hitting at the time that it did, but the closest game I could think of that could fill this niche is Gundam Versus, and I don't have a PS4, sadly. Also, I do have to remind you that this is a Nintendo-published game, and I'm pretty sure there's something in the Constitution that allows you to bitch about franchises they don't use. Thank you for watching to the end of this Custom Robo Arena overview, review, retrospective, I don't know. And if you want to see more videos of me, subscribe down below or look at one of the related videos up on the screen.